Something was stolen from you before you were old enough to notice it was gone. Not violently, not overnight, just quietly, generation by generation, replaced by convenience, by things that required a credit card instead of knowledge, a pharmacy instead of a forest, a screen instead of the sky above you. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors solved every problem you face today without a single modern system. They healed wounds in open fields. They found water in the middle of deserts. They slept deeply without a single pill. They built immunity without a single supplement. They understood the earth beneath their feet the way you understand your own name, instinctively, completely, and without needing to be told. Then comfort arrived, and comfort, it turns out, is the most effective eraser in human history. But here is what no one tells you: these skills did not stop working when we stopped using them. The chemistry didn't change. The biology didn't change. The only thing that changed was whether you knew they existed. Stay until the end of this video, because what we reveal at number 1 has been confirmed in over 20 peer-reviewed studies and described by researchers in the Asterisk Journal of Environmental and Public Health as one of the most overlooked healing practices in the history of modern medicine. And number 4 is going to permanently change the way you look at a handful of earth. This is the knowledge that was taken from you, and today you get it back. But before we go any further, if you are watching this video and nobody has told you about this channel yet, this is the moment. Hit that subscribe button right now. We publish this kind of deep, research-backed knowledge every single week, the kind that used to take years to find, compressed into videos you can watch in minutes. One click, that is all it takes to make sure you never miss it. And while you are down there in the comments, drop where you are watching from, country, state, city, wherever you are in the world right now. Every single time we post a video, people from over 60 countries show up, from Texas to Tokyo, from rural villages to city apartments. This knowledge belongs to all of us equally, and we want to see exactly how far it travels. Tell us where you are. The comment section is yours. Now let's get into it. Skill 10: the bow drill, fire from the earth itself. Every human story begins here. Before electricity, before gas, before any civilization you have ever read about in a textbook, there was fire. And fire had to be earned with nothing but 2 pieces of wood and a willingness to understand friction. The bow drill is the oldest reliably documented fire-starting technology in human history. A 7,000-year-old fire drilling toolset unearthed in Jiangsu, China in 2025. A drill stick and fireboard still bearing over 10 black and circular indentations from thousands of uses, provided the most well-preserved physical evidence of this method ever recovered. But the technique itself reaches back far further. Homer described friction fire in the Odyssey around 750 BC. Archaeological evidence traces bow drill use across ancient Egypt, Australia, the pre-Columbian Americas, and subarctic Scandinavia, independent discoveries on every inhabited continent, made by people who never once communicated with one another, all arriving at the same elegant solution. A softwood spindle is driven by a bow strung with natural cordage. The spindle rotates against a notched fireboard of basswood or cottonwood. Friction generates heat. Heat compresses into a glowing coal-black ember. That ember is transferred into a bundle of dry tinder and coaxed, breath by breath, into flame. Research in experimental archaeology confirms that the specific wood pairings used in traditional bow drill sets are not guesswork. They reflect generations of empirical refinement of friction coefficients and ignition thresholds that modern survivalists, testing hundreds of material variations, have consistently been unable to improve upon through improvisation alone. Lighters run out, matches disintegrate in moisture, batteries surrender to the cold. This skill produces fire from the forest floor itself, and it has been doing exactly that for longer than written language has existed. The only reason you do not know how to do it is that you have never needed to. That is a condition. It is not a permanent truth. Skill 9: the solar still, pulling water from invisible ground. No surface water, no stream, no river in sight, and yet water is almost always there, invisible beneath the soil, locked in the moisture of the earth, waiting for someone who knows how to ask for it. The solar still is a technique so effective it has appeared in military survival training manuals on 6 continents for decades, and yet most people alive today have never heard its name. Dig a hole, place a container at the bottom, drape a non-porous cover, a sheet of plastic, a tarp, an emergency blanket across the opening. Weight the center down gently so it dips toward the container below. Then let physics do what physics has always done. The sun heats the trapped air and the earth beneath it. Moisture evaporates upward from the soil, strikes the cooler surface above, condenses into droplets, and falls directly into your container below. A 2024 review published in Helion, examining solar still designs across global research, confirmed that solar distillation effectively removes biological contaminants and reduces salinity from brackish water sources, findings that have driven ongoing research into solar stills as low-cost water purification solutions for communities without reliable infrastructure. U.S. Air Force survival testing in the Arizona desert confirmed that a properly assembled ground still can yield life-sustaining water output in arid environments where no visible surface water is present. Indigenous peoples across the Sahara, the Australian outback, and the American Southwest knew versions of this technique long before any field manual was ever printed. They read the earth the way you read a map. They understood that the land is never as empty as it appears. The tap made this knowledge seem irrelevant, but the tap is not permanent, and the ground beneath your feet is. Skill 8: Natural Cordage, the skill that made every other skill possible. Almost no one talks about this one, and that is precisely the problem. Without the ability to make rope from what grows around you, nearly every other survival skill collapses. You cannot build stable shelter without lashing. You cannot construct a bow drill without cordage. You cannot set a snare, bind a splint, weave a net, or raft a river. Cordage is not a supplementary skill. It is the connective tissue, the invisible infrastructure of everything else. The method is called the reverse wrap. You harvest long-fibered plant material, stinging nettles, dogbane, cattail leaves, the inner bark of cedar, willow, or lime trees. You divide the fibers into 2 bundles. You twist each bundle clockwise while simultaneously wrapping them counterclockwise around each other. The opposing tensions lock the structure together and produce something stronger, pound for pound, than the individual fibers that compose it. Studies in experimental archaeology confirm that traditionally produced plant fiber cordage, particularly from dogbane and stinging nettles, achieves tensile strengths competitive with commercially produced natural rope of similar diameter. The Inca civilization of South America constructed suspension bridges using this exact method, some spanning over 150 feet across Andean gorges, bearing the weight of human traffic and livestock, built from nothing but grass, plant fiber, and the knowledge of how to bind them. This skill was abandoned because plastic twine became cheaper than learning. That has always been the pattern. Forgotten knowledge is not erased, it is priced out, and the price we pay for that convenience only becomes clear when the supply chain breaks. Skill 7: Clay and Mud Therapy, the earth as medicine. This is the one that surprises people most, because the medicine was right there under their feet the entire time. Medicinal clay use is one of the oldest documented healing traditions in recorded human history. Aristotle wrote about it in the 4th century BC. Pliny the Elder documented the use of volcanic muds for intestinal ailments in the 1st century AD. Cultures across Africa, the Americas, Asia, and the Middle East independently developed clay-based wound treatments, topical poultices, and mineral-rich mud therapies long before any formal medical system existed. In the Ivory Coast, a healer named Line Brunet de Courcou spent a decade treating patients with advanced buruli ulcer, a severe necrotizing skin infection caused by Mycobacterium ulcerans, using specific French green clay poultices. In 2002, she presented her documented results to the World Health Organization, reporting cases of complete wound resolution in patients for whom conventional treatment had failed. Modern researchers followed the trail. A study published in the International Journal of Antimicrobial Agents by Mayo Clinic researchers and collaborators at Arizona State University confirmed that reduced iron-bearing French green clay kills a broad spectrum of human wound pathogens, including bacteria grown as biofilms, which are notoriously resistant to conventional antibiotics. We showed that this reduced iron-bearing clay can kill some strains of bacteria under laboratory conditions, including bacteria grown as biofilms, which can be particularly challenging to treat, said Dr. Robin Patel, senior author of the study and infectious diseases specialist at Mayo Clinic. A 2024 review published in Materials by researchers at Central South University confirmed that clay minerals including montmorillonite and kaolinite, now on the FDA's list of approved active compounds, accelerate hemostasis, reduce wound exudate, control odor, and support tissue regeneration through their unique absorptive mineral structures. A separate review published in the Journal of Wound Management and Research in 2024 confirmed the therapeutic benefits of clay in wound care across multiple mineral types and treatment contexts. The mechanism is not mystical. Clay minerals carry a unique negative electrical charge that allows them to absorb toxins, bacteria, and excess fluid from wound sites. The trace minerals calcium, zinc, copper, iron embedded in the clay matrix actively interact with the wound environment in ways that pharmaceutical manufacturers are, right now, spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to synthetically replicate. The earth knew how to heal skin before we had words for infection. Skill 6: Willow Bark Tea, the pharmacy that grew in the forest. *. Now things get remarkable, because the next skill has nothing to do with fire, water, or wounds. It has everything to do with pain. Willow bark has been used as a pain-relieving agent for at least 6,000 years. Sumerian clay tablets dating to roughly 4,000 years ago document its application for fever and inflammation. Ancient Egyptians recorded it in the Ebers Papyrus. Hippocrates wrote about it in the 5th century BC. Indigenous cultures across North America, Europe, and Asia, separated by oceans, by centuries, by every conceivable barrier, independently discovered the same tree and brewed the same tea. That level of independent convergence is not coincidence, it is evidence. The active compound is salicin. After ingestion, the body converts it to salicylic acid. If that sounds familiar, it should. In the 1890s, German chemists at Bayer synthesized aspirin acetylsalicylic acid by chemically modifying this exact compound derived from willow bark. One of the most widely consumed pharmaceuticals in human history was built on the blueprint that ancient healers had already drawn 6,000 years earlier. The clinical evidence is robust. A double-blind randomized controlled trial published in the American Journal of Medicine tested 191 patients with chronic low back pain. Participants receiving willow bark extract, standardized to 240 milligrams of salicin daily, achieved a 39% pain-free rate in the final week of treatment, compared to just 6% in the placebo group, a difference statistically significant at p less than 0.001. A 2023 meta-analysis published in MDPI's Life Journal *, analyzing 6 randomized controlled trials covering 329 arthritis patients, confirmed that willow bark produced statistically significant improvements in both pain scores and physical function compared to placebo. Crucially, willow bark contains hundreds of additional bioactive compounds alongside salicin, flavonoids, polyphenols, tannins, L-arginins, that researchers believe act synergistically in ways that isolated aspirin cannot replicate. The whole plant appears to produce broader therapeutic effects with fewer of the gastrointestinal side effects associated with pharmaceutical aspirin. The compound was extracted, modified, and sold. The tree it came from was quietly forgotten, but the tree is still there, and it still works exactly as it always did. Now we enter the final 5. Pay attention, because what follows is not impressive because it is ancient. It is impressive because nothing built since has replaced it. Skill 5: Herbal sleep remedies, valerian, passionflower, and hops. An estimated 1 in 3 adults struggles with sleep. The global market for pharmaceutical sleep aids is valued at tens of billions of dollars. And yet, for most of human history, people found reliable sleep support in 3 plants that grow wild across the northern hemisphere, plants that healers in ancient Rome, medieval Europe, and indigenous North America all independently identified and used for the same purpose. Valerian root, passionflower, hops. These 3 plants are not folk superstition. They are pharmacologically active, individually and in combination, working through the same neurological pathways targeted by many pharmaceutical sleep medications. Valerian acts primarily as a GABA modulator, enhancing the activity of gamma-aminobutyric acid, the brain's primary calming neurotransmitter, in a mechanism that several researchers have described as comparable in action to benzodiazepines, but without the dependency profile. Hops contains bitter resins, particularly a compound called 2-methyl-3-butyl, that interact with GABA receptors and additionally modulate serotonin and melatonin pathways, 2 key regulators of the sleep-wake cycle. Passionflower, used as a sedative by Native American peoples for centuries, exerts its effects through chrysin, a bioflavonoid that binds directly to GABA receptors in the brain, and has been studied for its anxiolytic and sleep-promoting properties. The clinical research on their combination is compelling. A randomized controlled trial published in the Indian Journal of Pharmacology tested a standardized polyherbal formulation containing valerian, passionflower, and hops against zolpidem, a pharmaceutical sleep medication, in patients with primary insomnia. The herbal combination significantly improved total sleep time, reduced sleep latency, decreased nightly awakenings, and improved insomnia severity index scores. A systematic review published in Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine in 2020, analyzing 38 relevant clinical reports, confirmed that valerian was the most studied herbal compound for sleep. and that its combination with hops produced synergistic effects on sleep latency and quality consistent across multiple trials. A 2024 comprehensive review published in Psychiatry Investigation concluded that valerian and hops demonstrate the strongest evidence among herbal sleep supplements, with their mechanism of action operating through modulation of GABA neurotransmitter systems and regulation of sleep-wake cycles. In Germany, this three-herb combination is sold under a licensed pharmaceutical name and approved for use in patients with sleep-related disorders. In the rest of the modern world, it is largely forgotten behind a wall of prescription pads and pharmaceutical advertising. The plants have not changed. The sleep deprivation crisis, however, has never been worse. Skill 4: Earthing and Grounding, the connection that modernity broke. This is the one that makes people stop and read the sentence twice. Because what we are about to describe sounds like it should be mythology, it is not. It is electrochemistry. For the overwhelming majority of human evolutionary history, the human body maintained constant direct electrical contact with the earth. Bare feet on soil, skin against grass, body sleeping on ground. This was not a lifestyle choice. It was simply the condition of being alive as a human being for over 200,000 years. Then modernity arrived, and with it rubber-soled shoes, elevated beds, insulated floors, and the complete systematic severing of that electrical connection. The theory of earthing, sometimes called grounding, proposes that this disconnection has measurable physiological consequences. The surface of the Earth carries a continuous, stable supply of negatively charged free electrons. When bare skin contacts the Earth directly, these electrons are conducted into the body and function as antioxidants, neutralizing positively charged free radicals, the reactive oxygen species at the root of most chronic inflammatory processes in the body. The research is more substantial than most people realize. A review published in the Asterisk Journal of Environmental and Public Health documented that over 20 studies have reported significant physiological improvements from grounding, including better sleep, normalized cortisol rhythms, reduced pain, decreased blood viscosity, improved heart rate variability, and accelerated wound healing. A 2020 Integrative Medicine review published in Explore, the Journal of Science and Healing, analyzing accumulated research evidence and clinical observations across 2 decades, concluded that earthing contact stabilizes the body's physiology at the deepest levels, reduces inflammation, pain, and stress, improves blood flow and energy, and that these effects are profound, systemic, and foundational, often developing rapidly. A 2023 review published in Biomedical Journal described grounding as a practical applications tool for supporting human health, noting that grounding studies consistently show improvements in cortisol normalization, deepened restorative sleep, muscle relaxation, and mood elevation. A double-blind pilot study involving 58 healthy adult subjects found that upon earthing, all experimental participants showed an abrupt, near-instantaneous change in electromyogram readings, demonstrating that the body's electrical physiology responds to earth contact in real, measurable, physiologically significant ways. Research indicates that throughout most of human evolutionary history, the separation of the human body from the Earth's electrical field was essentially non-existent. Rubber-soled shoes, which only became standard footwear after World War II, represent one of the most universal and least discussed changes to the human body's bioelectrical environment in our species' history. You do not need equipment, you do not need a practitioner, you need bare feet and 20 minutes on grass, soil, or sand. Your body knows exactly what to do the moment you give it the chance. It has been waiting for 200,000 years. Skill 3: Bone broth, the oldest recovery protocol in human history. This is not a wellness trend. This is not something that appeared on social media. This is a recovery technology so ancient, so consistent across civilizations, and so independently discovered by virtually every culture that ever documented its medicine, that its universality is itself a form of clinical evidence. From ancient China to medieval Europe, from pre-colonial North America to traditional African healing systems, long-simmered animal bone broth appears as a recovery tool in nearly every healing tradition that has ever existed. Warriors consumed it before and after battle. Healers administered it to the sick and the convalescing. Mothers gave it to feverish children. Physicians prescribed it to soldiers returning from campaigns. No culture that had access to animal bones and fire failed to discover this preparation. That is a remarkable pattern. It does not happen by accident. The science now explains, in precise biochemical terms, exactly why it worked. A 2025 review published in Digestive Diseases and Sciences by researchers at the Mayo Clinic confirmed that the amino acids most concentrated in long-simmered bone broth, glutamine, glycine, proline, and arginine, play direct and documented roles in maintaining intestinal barrier integrity, reducing gut inflammation, and supporting immune system function. Glycine, present in concentrations of 500 to 1,700 milligrams per cup of properly prepared broth, has been shown in peer-reviewed research to improve sleep quality, reduce daytime fatigue, and enhance memory consolidation when consumed before sleep. A landmark 2021 randomized controlled trial conducted at Stanford University and published in the journal Cell found that participants consuming diets rich in fermented and collagen-dense foods showed measurable decreases in interleukin-6, a major inflammatory marker linked to rheumatoid arthritis, type 2 diabetes, and chronic stress, in blood samples collected throughout the study period. This knowledge faded for one reason and one reason only: it cannot be patented. A carcass and a slow fire produce something that no supplement company has outperformed in any clinical trial. The formula was free. The earth provided the raw material, the fire did the work. That will always be a difficult product to compete with commercially. The ancient formula is still available to anyone willing to use it. Skill 2: Fermentation as immune technology, what every ancient culture knew. What comes next reframes every chronic illness statistic you have ever seen, and once you understand it, you will not be able to unsee it. Korean kimchi, Japanese miso, West African dawadawa, Eastern European kefir, Indian lassi, Bulgarian yogurt, these are not regional food traditions or cultural artifacts. They are the visible expressions of the same discovery made independently by cultures across Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas, across thousands of years of human history, that deliberately exposing food to controlled microbial fermentation makes the people who eat it measurably, documentably, consistently healthier over time. These peoples had no knowledge of microbiology, no laboratory, no instruments. They arrived at the same conclusion through thousands of generations of careful observation. That is not superstition. That is science in its oldest and most honest form. The clinical evidence that now validates this ancient knowledge is among the most significant published in nutritional research in the last decade. A landmark randomized controlled trial by Wastick and colleagues at Stanford University, published in Cell in 2021, enrolled 36 healthy adults in either a high-fermented food diet or a high-fiber diet for 10 weeks. The fermented food group showed a consistent, statistically significant increase in gut microbiome diversity, with stronger effects observed at higher serving frequencies, and a simultaneous measured decrease across 19 separate inflammatory proteins in blood samples. Among those proteins was interleukin-6, a major marker of chronic systemic inflammation linked to type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, cardiovascular disease, and depression. The high-fiber group, widely promoted in modern nutritional guidance, showed no measurable decrease in any of the 19 inflammatory markers. Not one. This is a stunning finding, said Dr. Justin Sonnenberg, the study's senior author and professor of microbiology at Stanford. A follow-up review published in Nutrients in 2023 confirmed that the health-promoting properties of fermented foods extend beyond their live microbial populations. Fermentation also increases nutrient bioavailability, generates bioactive peptides, and produces short-chain fatty acids that directly nourish and protect the gut lining itself. The diversity of microbial strains in traditionally prepared fermented foods is the critical variable that pharmaceutical probiotic supplements have never been able to replicate. A single-strain commercial probiotic capsule is one voice. A jar of traditionally fermented food made with generational knowledge of culture, temperature, and timing is an entire living ecosystem. This knowledge was not destroyed. It was diluted, systematically replaced over the course of the 20th century, by pasteurization, sterilization, and the comprehensive removal of living microbial biology from the industrial food supply. Researchers are now actively studying the correlation between that removal and the modern epidemic of chronic inflammatory disease. The ancient peoples who fermented their food had no name for the microbiome. They simply knew what happened to the people who ate it. And they passed that knowledge down. Until we stopped listening. Skill 1: Earth and Clay Sleep Packs and Herbal Night Ritual, the original sleep system. Wait, you have already heard about clay, you have already heard about herbal sleep remedies, so what is this? This is the combination, And combinations, as every traditional healer who ever lived understood, are where the real power lies. Every sophisticated healing tradition that ever developed a sleep protocol built it as a system, not a single intervention, but a sequence of preparations that work together to move the human body, step by step, from the wired, reactive, cortisol-elevated state of the waking day toward the deeply parasympathetic, hormonally normalized state that allows genuine biological restoration during sleep. Indigenous and traditional healers across cultures used this combination intuitively. A warm mineral clay pack applied to the feet or lower abdomen before sleep, drawing heat from the body's core, stimulating circulation and leveraging the clay's absorptive mineral properties, followed by a warm infusion of valerian passion flower, and hops consumed in the hour before lying down. The science behind each component is now documented, but the science behind the combination is where the story becomes most interesting. Research indicates that warming the feet before sleep accelerates the body's natural core temperature drop, the exact physiological shift that triggers sleep onset and deepens sleep architecture. This is why cultures as geographically separate as ancient China and traditional European folk medicine both independently developed the practice of warming the feet before sleep. A mineral clay pack applied to the feet achieves this thermal shift while simultaneously drawing the body's electrical activity toward ground through direct skin contact with the mineral matrix, producing the same grounding effect documented in the earthing research reviewed in Skill 4. The herbal compounds consumed simultaneously, valerian, passion flower, and hops, engage the GABA system directly, reducing the neurological arousal that prevents sleep onset in stressed, cortisol-elevated individuals. Studies suggest that the combination of physical thermal regulation, bioelectrical grounding through mineral contact, and GABA-ergic herbal supplementation targets the three primary physiological barriers to sleep onset: core temperature dysregulation, sympathetic nervous system overactivation, and neurological arousal, simultaneously and through distinct biological pathways. No single pharmaceutical sleep medication addresses more than one of these barriers at a time. This ancient three-part protocol addresses all three in the order that the body's own sleep architecture requires. This was not designed in a laboratory. It was designed by centuries of careful human observation, refined by healers who watched what worked and passed down what worked and trusted that the body knew how to sleep if you gave it the right conditions. The sleep crisis of the modern world is not a mystery. It is the predictable result of removing every condition the body evolved to require and then wondering why the body will not rest. The conditions still exist. The knowledge of how to use them is what was forgotten. These 10 skills are not a collection of historical curiosities. They are a curriculum, a complete, tested, cross-culturally validated system for keeping a human being alive, healthy, and resilient in a world that is always more unpredictable than it appears. The people who preserved this knowledge across thousands of years were not primitive. They were not waiting for civilization to arrive and rescue them. They were the ones who knew how to live when everything else was unavailable. And they understood something that comfort consistently makes difficult to see: the world is not as stable as its infrastructure makes it look. The person who can start fire from the forest floor, pull water from the soil, heal a wound with earth, relieve pain with bark, sleep deeply with plants, restore gut health with fermented food, and reconnect their body to the living electrical field of the planet, that person does not need rescuing. You do not have to abandon modern life to carry this knowledge. You carry it by learning it. You keep it alive by using it. You pass it forward by sharing it with someone who needs it before the moment they need it. If this video changed something in how you see the world, share it with one person today. That is how this knowledge survives, not archived in libraries, not locked in academic journals, but alive in the hands of people who know what to do with it. Drop the name of the skill you want us to break down fully in the comments right now. The most requested one becomes the next deep dive video. The conversation belongs to you.